We are in the home stretch of this very monumental election, and that means that each of the candidates are out there trying to make their closing arguments to the American people. And while Donald Trump seems to be out there running on fear, division, and hate, Kamala Harris is actually talking about policies that are going to benefit the American people. But if you end up getting anything out of this video, please remember to smash that subscribe button. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, as much as I do understand that Donald Trump is an existential threat to this country and that he lacks the character to be the next president of the United States, I think it's also important to remember that these two candidates have a very different vision for the future of this country. And that is especially true when we're talking about policy. So today, I wanted to take a look at a few of the main topics that that the American people care about. In Kamala Harris's own words, she has plans for this country that will benefit most or more Americans. And that is the type of president we should be electing.
Prices for everyday necessities like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. So I have a plan to lower costs on everything ranging from healthcare to groceries, including taking on corporate price gouging. And my plan includes giving a tax cut to 100 million Americans, including $6,000, by expanding the child tax credit for the first year of a child's life to help young and new parents buy a car seat, a crib, baby clothes, in that most significant phase of their development. And all of this is to say, I will always put the middle class and working families first.
Now, I think we should all remember that when the extended child tax credit was extended during the pandemic under the Biden and Harris administration, child poverty was cut in half. In half. It was a big deal. And then when Republicans wouldn't extend those child tax credits, child poverty shot right back up. And Kamala Harris is going to be the only candidate that is looking at options like this to help middle-class families. She understands that the middle class just doesn't form organically, that we need programs in place to help people get to their next goal in life. And that is okay. We live in one of the most prosperous countries in the world. We should be all lifting each other up. So I don't mind paying taxes and paying for programs like this because I do think it will benefit most Americans. And she even has probably her most popular policy proposal is extending Medicare coverage to cover in-home health care. This is a huge deal.
We will expand Medicare to cover home health care for seniors, so more seniors can live at home with dignity, and give more support to the sandwich generation, to those of you who are raising young children and taking care of your parents. It's the work that is about giving folks dignity.
Like I said, this is a big deal for anybody that has experience taking care of their parents or maybe their grandparents. You know that in-home health care is very, very expensive. So if Medicare can step up and cover some of those costs, that's going to put more money back into Americans' pockets. And Kamala Harris has many other plans, like providing the $25,000 down payment assistance for new home buyers. That extended child tax credit, I think, is a great idea. She's talking about implementing price gouging bans to make sure that corporations aren't taking advantage of the American people. But that is only scratching the surface. I highly recommend you go take a look at her economic agenda on her website. I will try to remember to link it in the description below. But for now, we'll go ahead and move on to one of the most important topics in this election, and that is reproductive rights. Donald Trump is responsible for appointing those Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe v. Wade, and now women today are living with fewer rights than their parents or their grandparents had. And I find that pretty unacceptable. Let's go ahead and take a look at this ad from Kamala.
I've never slept a full night in my entire life. I was 5 years old when my stepfather abused me for the first time. I just felt like I was alone on a planet with a monster. I was 12 when he impregnated me. I just remember thinking, I have to get out of my skin. I can't be me right now. Like, this can't be it. I didn't know what to do. I was a child. I didn't know what it meant to be pregnant at all. But I had options. Because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade, girls and women all over the country have lost the right to choose, even for rape or incest. Donald Trump did this. He took away our freedom.
Now, I think that was probably Kamala Harris's most powerful ad during the campaign. And I want you guys to think about whether or not you want to live in a country that forces 12-year-old girls to carry pregnancies to term. Is that an acceptable deal for you? Because Kamala Harris is going to be the only one out there who is fighting for these reproductive rights. I do not want to live in a world where people who are victim of rape and incest are forced to carry that child to term. I think that is ludicrous, and I think most Americans think it is ludicrous as well. Let's listen to actually Kamala Harris herself talk about this issue.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
More than 60% of Americans believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And Donald Trump is responsible for rolling those rights back. Kamala Harris is going to be the only candidate out there that is fighting for the reproductive rights that women and everybody else deserves. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who wants to brag about overturning Roe v. Wade and then try to sell you lies about how all the legal scholars wanted this, when that is not even close to true. This is a fundamental freedom that belongs to women and pregnant people, and they should be the ones that are making these choices when it comes to creating their families. So I think this is going to be one of the main motivating issues of this election. I think we are going to see record turnout among women this year, and I think this will be one of the biggest issues that they're voting on. Now let's go ahead and turn over to the last topic I wanted to touch on, and this is the border. The border is a big deal. We are having issues at our southern border right now, and while Donald Trump is talking about mass deportations, Kamala Harris has common sense border reform that she is running on. Kamala Harris is going to be better on the border than Donald Trump. It's not even a question. Let's go ahead and take a look.
And as president, I won't only bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump tanked. I will do more to secure our border. To reduce illegal border crossings, I will take further action to keep the border closed between ports of entry. Those who cross our borders unlawfully will be apprehended and removed and barred from re-entering for 5 years. We will pursue more severe criminal charges against repeat violators. And if someone does not make an asylum request at a legal point of entry and instead crosses our border unlawfully, they will be barred from receiving asylum. While we understand that many people are desperate to migrate to the United States, our system must be orderly and secure. And that is my goal.
Now, I don't agree with everything Kamala Harris just said, but I do understand that the border is an issue, and Kamala Harris is the only one with actual policy proposals to address the issue. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is responsible for killing that bipartisan border bill because he wanted this issue to run on in this election. If Donald Trump was the America First candidate that he proclaims to be, why would he stand in the way of getting problems fixed at the southern border? It's because he wanted this issue to run on. And while he is promising these mass deportations that would be an absolute stain on this country, Kamala Harris is promising to implement that bipartisan border deal and go a step further by implementing these other regulations around the border as well. So for each of these different issues that we have looked at, and for actually every single issue that Americans care about, I know that Kamala Harris is the better choice. The only policy that Donald Trump talks about is these across-the-board tariffs and mass deportations. He wants to implement 20 to 30% across-the-board tariffs that are going to harm American consumers. And then he's talking about upping that to 60% or more for Chinese goods. And we've already done a couple different videos on how tariffs work and how they would impact the American people. But all I'll say is those costs will be passed onto the American consumer. You will be paying more for whatever you're buying because you have now had this 20 to 30% tax added to the price of those goods. So on every single issue, I think Kamala Harris is the better choice. I think Donald Trump is an unserious, unstable, and an unfit candidate who is an incompetent fool. So if you want somebody who is going to be looking out for the American people, who actually has policy proposals that are going to impact change, Kamala Harris is your choice. And let's not forget, Kamala Harris is the only candidate in this race that is promising to govern for all Americans. And this should be the starting point for anybody who wants to be the next president of the United States.
As a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on investing right now in you, the American people. And we can chart a new way forward. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Like I said, anyone who wants to be the next president of the United States should make the commitment to look out for all Americans. But Donald Trump is not the candidate that is doing that. He is promising to use the United States military against his political opponents and people that don't agree with him. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, understands that she's going to have people that disagree with her. Maybe even half the country are going to disagree with her at times. But she is making the commitment to govern for all Americans. And I believe her when she says that she has the best interest of this country in mind. I cannot say the same thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump only cares about Donald Trump, and therefore he is only going to look out for his own interests. Kamala Harris has devoted nearly her whole life to public service. So when she makes the commitment to govern for all Americans, I believe her. So I think these are some of the main topics people are concerned about in this election. I think that on every single policy issue, Kamala Harris is the clear winner. And I think she should be the next president of the United States because she is the only competent candidate that is actually proposing policies that are going to benefit Americans. So these are the things that we need to remember when we go vote this November. I'll leave it there. If you guys got anything out of this video, please remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. I'm trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to see Donald Trump's terrible performance when he's discussing his own tariffs, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.